to the topic of the discussion and hit the issues you typically find reluctant. Remove the facade to fill the gap with some substance. We undermining problems, expecting to overcome it. Please hold the applause. We doing it for the cause. People follow culture before they follow the laws. We rather face the friction and not attempt it at all. Persistence will find solutions once our contentment dissolves. There's a hard pill to swallow for anyone breathing, both for folks who stay woke and those who be dreaming. We ain't slaves, yet we still ain't experienced freedom. What we need is the keys to access the kingdom. We're all in this fallen world trying to stay intact. I'm just a beggar, point you out to where the bread is at. So follow the breadcrumbs like Hansel and Gretel. Thank Yogi Bear and the thought engineer for that on Man Talk Monday. It's Man Talk Monday. Woo!
Hey, what's going on, good people? Welcome back to Man Talk Mondays. I am Derek, the thought engineer, and I know y'all noticed that somebody's missing today. Well, my partner, comedian John Yogi, he's getting some much needed R&R, him and his wife on vacation. So we're just wishing them the best on their vacation, that they're having a great time. So have fun, man. Do your thing. Get some good, much needed rest so we can get back at it when you come back, man. So let me just remind everybody who we are and what we do. This is Man Talk Mondays. Now it's an open forum where we give you the rational realities of relationships, but we're doing it from a man's perspective. Now keep in mind, this conversation is not just for men. We want everybody to join into the conversation. How you do this? Go into the comment section, leave your comment, leave your question. We can see this, and this is how you talk to us. But by all means, we want to hear from you, right? Our aim, what we're trying to do, is help men build better lives, one conversation at a time. One conversation at a time. So kinfolk, pull up. We want to hear from you tonight. We got a great show coming up for you. I know if you caught the last show, we talked about I'm getting older and I'm scared, right? And we kind of talked about some financial fears that are real for some people, right? Especially men in their 40s and their 50s. If we were sleeping through our 20s and our 30s, life has gotten real for us right now, especially in the area of finances. So we decided this show, we wanted to come to you. And we're talking about tonight, I don't want to die broke. I don't want to die broke. And we're getting help from an expert tonight, right? I don't want to die broke. Help from an expert. So we're going to bring our expert on to join us for this conversation. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Lawrence Brown, our financial strategist that will be joining us for this conversation tonight. Mr. Lawrence, how are you doing tonight, sir?
Derek, how you doing, sir? IG Live fam, what's going on? What's going on? I apologize. I was having some technical difficulties, but I think we're good now. If y'all could y'all comment, make sure that y'all can see me okay, make sure y'all can hear me okay.
Yeah.
Get this thing going.
Yeah, let's get live with it. Yes,
now, sir. In the comments, can you guys hear me? What's up, followers?
Right. So he's on IG Live. We're on Facebook, YouTube. So we're just trying to get this thing out to as many people as possible so that you can join into the conversation and get this valuable information that we're going to be sharing tonight. You don't want to miss that. Mr. John Yogi, he says, we are great, sir. Glad you're doing well, man. Having a good time. Continue to do that. Mr. Cam Fields says, yes, sir, we can hear you. All right. So the people are here. They've showed up. They're ready for us. So we want to go ahead and jump off into this conversation, right? So what we covered last episode, me and John, we kind of talked about waiting until you get into your 40s and 50s, and all of a sudden this light bulb comes on that you've allowed some time to slip by before you've really realized where you are financially, right? And this is a heavy thing for some people. So from what you can gather from your experience, what are some things, or why do you think people wait? What causes men to delay taking their financial future seriously?
Yeah, I think that's an amazing question. I think it's a few things. I don't think it's one shoe fits all. Everybody has their different financial situations, but one is a lack of education. Obviously, the majority of the people on the line, we are an African American community. And what I've noticed is a lot of parents just don't pass along that financial information. And what we come to find out is a lot of times they don't even know.
Right.
So as now with finances can be very complicated. So when we're looking at some of the financial tools, such as say a 401k or a Roth IRA, or just getting into investments, stocks, bonds, it can be very, very complicated. So one, I believe it's a lack of education. Another one, what I'm seeing a lot is just the fear and anxiety of finance. Just finances to a lot of people is just a bad word. They don't like to talk about finances. It's a cliche. I know my parents had taught, but you hear the older folks say, don't let them know what it is that you got. So in terms of fear and just the anxiety around it. Another one I would just say is short-term focus.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of us just in terms of our focus, we're not really thinking long term. I know in my particular age group, I talk to a lot of my friends about retirement, and the mindset is, yeah, we have time. We have time to wait. We can invest later on in life. I'm focused on my bills. I'm focused on what it is I'm doing right now. I'm having fun. I'm just now starting to make money. I can focus on retirement later. And I just think that that's just a huge mistake.
Yeah. You know, for a lot of guys, when you finally come to that realization, it can hit you like a ton of bricks, right? But real quick, let people know. So what age group are you in? So people know what perspective we're coming from.
Absolutely. So I'm representing for the millennials. So I'm 30. Yep. Represent for the millennials today. 32 years old. But I've been, and I know we'll talk about this and get into it a little bit later. I've been financially focused since I was 14 years old.
14.
But it's not my fault. I believe he's on, but it's actually my father who
because I was just about to ask, what made you go ahead and lock in so early? Because that's huge. That's huge. But you said it's your father. Shout out to your father for dropping those important nuggets on you so you can go ahead and lock in early. But like you said a second ago, you have people in your age group, and that's what we talked about last week. In your 20s and 30s, you kind of sleep, like you said, people having fun, just trying to pay some bills and things. So what do you tell people in your age group, like you said, trying to get them to focus on retirement? How do you convince them to go ahead and lock in early?
Well, even though I'm a millennial, I understand that you can't convince anybody to do anything. But people have to want it for themselves. I can talk to people till I'm blue in the face, but until they actually make the decision, or until they realize just enough is enough, then they'll come and they'll seek help. But for my friends that have been hungry, that have been just, hey, LB, I don't really know what it is I need to do about my finances. Where do I start? What is it that I need to do? The first thing that I tell them is it starts with the mindset.
Wow.
Before we even get into the numbers, before we get into the strategic approach, it first just starts with the mindset. And I just want to mention too, when it comes to finances, I know that we're talking about finances, but it's so much deeper than just the numbers. Finances, it'll actually reveal to you your priorities. Finances can reveal your disciplines. Finances can reveal your emotional triggers.
Wow.
Maybe family trauma. There's so much that goes into finances. Goal-oriented, usually individuals that you see that are goal-oriented, there's a correlation that you'll see with their finances.
Wow.
So finances can reveal so much more than just the numbers. So when I'm talking to my friends or when I'm talking to some of my peers or people that look to me for financial coaching, I first just mentioned the mindset and just kind of get an idea of how they even view finances.
Yeah. Now that's huge because like you said, the money thing, it goes deeper. A lot of times people don't understand money exposes your values. And when you give a person some money, how they spend and what they decide to do, it really tells you a lot about them. But having that financial education, a lot of people are missing that. But how many people have you encountered that are real forthcoming with the fact that they don't know? Is that something you find that people struggle with, admitting to that?
So it all boils down to trust. They have to be able to trust you. I mean, when you're talking about finances and how someone views finances, it's not a one conversation thing. You're talking about years of trauma, years of conditioning, where you're trying to break that mold. So when I'm talking to them about finances, there's a few different approaches that I like to take. I mentioned that I like to talk about just the mindset.
Right.
Also, when it comes to just spiritually in scripture, the Bible says, do not be, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Right.
So the conditioning that they've had for years, you're having to work and you're having to change that. But to answer your question in terms of people's vulnerability, they have to be able to trust you and they have to know that you know what it is that you're talking about. When they see that, when they get a feel that you know what it is that you're talking about, and like I said earlier, when they realize enough is enough, then I find that they're a little bit more prone to open up.
Now that's good, because let's say you have a person, a guy that's in his 40s or his 50s, say he comes to you, right? He sees you, see how you working things, and he likes what he sees. And he comes to you and he's like, hey man, I just realized I'm in bad shape. I'm in bad shape. And he's had that revelation that is getting down to the wire. I need to do something now. How do you help him reframe? How would you help him reframe that moment to turn it from a moment of feeling like this woe is me to try to turn it into a positive thing that, you know, he can kind of start in the right direction?
Absolutely. So first he would have to, or whoever it is would first have to lose that fear or anxiety about just understanding their finances. You talk to so many people, and I talk to a bunch of friends, I talk to peers, people that come to me for coaching, and I start asking them questions. I'll ask them, okay, how much debt do you have? I'll say, okay, how much are you paying in interest? How many credit cards do you have? What do you have in student loans? And what you find is there are just so many people that just don't know or don't understand the financial state that they're in. So first, it would just be looking at your finances. That's the first step, just understanding the full scope, your full financial picture. And then what I like to tell them is maximizing your margins. So when I talk about margins, it's referring to just a budget sheet. Your margins is what's going to help you build wealth. So when it comes to saving, when it comes to investing, you have to look at, okay, what are my margins? And when you ask someone, okay, what is your margins? What is your disposable income? A lot of times they just don't know that. So I think being able to have a clearer picture of your full financial state will allow you to take that first step in being able to move forward in your finances.
Yeah, and one thing I typically tell people, ignorance is not a bad thing. ignorance that simply means not knowing, right? You can cure ignorance very easily. You just find out. So if you're ignorant of certain things, the best thing is to get with somebody who knows and start asking questions. Absolutely. Right? My wife always talks about be curious. So you got to be curious about your financial situation and finding out more information about it. Now, you mentioned your dad was the one who really taught you. Did he ever tell you why, or was it just something that was understood in your household?
I love this question. I believe my dad is on right now.
Okay.
But what's amazing is someone actually sat him down and helped him.
Wow.
So it's when we talk about men in their 50s and when we talk about just cultural, just us as Black men, I believe that every Black man needs a mentor.
Yes.
And I think that's huge. And my father had a mentor, and that mentor shaped the way that shaped the way that he thinks. And based on his shaping and based on his understanding, he knew that he wanted to leave a legacy. And the Bible says a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children.
Right. Yeah.
So my father's whole mindset, ever since I was a little boy, was legacy. It was always, it wasn't just leaving a legacy of finances, but it's also leaving a mindset to me. So when we talked about that, he actually forced, when I was 14, the first book, and I love it. I'll grab it and you can still see it.
What you got? What you got?
Yeah, you can still see it. It's an older book. It's been used. But when I was 14 years old, the first book that he ever...
Richest Man in Babylon. Heard about that book. Yeah.
Excellent book. Excellent. And he sat down, he made me read it, and he asked me, what did I learn from it? And he just continued to shape my mindset. So as I got older, I always remembered those principles that he taught me.
Wow. So y'all make sure y'all take note of these resources. Any resources he mentions, make sure you take note of it. I heard about The Richest Man in Babylon. Very important financial book. So make sure you take note of all that stuff, right?
I got some, and for my followers, this is, and I just want to just pause and just say thank you to Derek. As you guys know, I've been pushing now my financial literacy journey. So I really appreciate for everyone hopping on the IG Live. I appreciate you, Derek, for finding what it is that I'm doing and hearing me through word of mouth. But for those, and if you can put it in the chat and let me know at the end, but those that really stay on the whole time, that sees value and that really wants to make a change in their finances, at the end, I'm actually going to have a little bit of a giveaway for a few people.
Okay. So, all right. Little incentive for you to stay on. All right.
Absolutely.
I like how you did that. keep them locked in. I like that. Keep them locked in. But no, that's great. John says, I got that one and it's a great read. All right. So he has The Richest Man in Babylon. Absolutely. Now, one thing about, waiting is now I'm in my 40s and my 50s. I've waited. Where can I get started? Because it can be overwhelming when we look at the big picture. What's the very first step that a person can begin to do to start to turn that financial situation around? Absolutely.
That's a great question. And I know that I haven't dived too deep into some of the financial tools yet. I'm going to do that. But again, I can give, like I said in the beginning, I can give all the information. I can talk about a 401k, an IRA, a mutual fund, an HSA, but it first starts with the mindset.
Yes.
And you have to be able to have that confidence to believe in yourself and want to make a change. Until you actually want to make a change, nothing will happen. So the first thing that I would recommend people do is sit down and create SMART goals. And I want to break that down. For those who follow me on Instagram, they've seen a few videos that I've made. But a SMART goal is one thing to say, oh, I want to be financially free, or I want to save up for retirement. But it's another thing when you're actually putting intention behind it. What SMART is an acronym. SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, or actionable, relevant, and timely. So instead of just saying, I want this, you have to put action behind your goals. If you look, and they always give this statistic, 90% of the people don't follow their goals by the end after their New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's because it doesn't mean anything to them. Creating a SMART goal gives it meaning. If you don't have meaning, or if you don't have a why behind what it is that you're trying to do, you're never going to change your habits.
Wow. That's good. That's good. Kelly Johnson says, yes, mindset is so key to financial independence. Shout out to Kelly. Mr. Ken T10, he says, good morning, brothers. All right. So creating those goals, and you said something key. You says people make goals, but they don't necessarily take them seriously. Now, one thing about when you hit that 40, 50 range, life gets more serious.
Absolutely.
So you got a little bit more incentive to go ahead and kick it in. Mr. Troy Kraft says, preach. Right? He says, preach. You got a little bit more incentive to lock in, because like you said, giving people tools is one thing, but what's the hesitation in using the tools? What's the hesitation in even approaching, sitting down and starting to write out those SMART goals? And that mindset shift, like I said, I remember they say Les Brown said it's the start that stops most people. Right? Because on the front end, that's where you incur most of the friction. It always seems like it's harder, right? I don't know if you work out or something, but you in the gym, that first rep is always harder. Starting to do something is always harder at the beginning. What would be your way of encouraging somebody in that first, those first stages of starting to go down that path to financial freedom?
So a loaded question. I'll take a different approach. You said, what is that first step in just starting? Usually, if Dr. Miles Monroe, rest in peace, we talked a little bit about what finances mean and what it can reveal to you, but it's really about management. Management is really the key. It's not just managing. It's not about the number. It's not about the dollar amount. It's about how well you manage your finances. Right. And you'll see, like I said earlier, once you're a good manager, in Genesis 1:28, the very, very first assignment that God gave Adam, or that God gave man, was to be fruitful, to multiply, to take dominion over the earth. Right. God tells us in the very beginning, his first commandment to us was to be good managers. So you have to just look at, like I said, evaluating your finances, but look at your relationships, looking at your finances, looking at just how well you're doing on the job. All of these things correlate together. So if you're lacking in one area, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be lacking in another area. Right. So I would just challenge them to just become better managers. Now, the way that you can become a better manager, especially in your finances, is you have to save yourself from yourself. Wow. The way, and I tell my friends this all the time. It's a few books that I have that talks about it. But when it comes to saving money, when it comes to an emergency fund, when it comes to investing, a lot of times we'll get started, but it's not moving fast enough. It's not going anywhere. So what you have to do, and then one of my strategic approaches when I'm talking to clients, or when I'm talking to different people about finances, is you have to begin to put these your goals on automatic. You have to begin to put those goals on automatic. So when it comes to savings, you have to be able to save and put them on automatic. When it comes to paying your house note and paying your bills, you have to be able to put these things on automatic. Because when you don't, then it becomes a mental gymnastics. You're playing mental gymnastics with your finances. Wow. And if you're just now starting at 40 or 50, clearly the mental gymnastics haven't been working well. Yeah.
Yeah. I talked about that last episode. Um, like you said, shout out to Dr. Miles Monroe, very important man in my life. But he mentioned that. He said, there's a principle. God honors management. Whatever you mismanage, you'll lose. Right? Management is how you show God that you're serious, basically.
Yeah.
Right? Because he's the one that adds to you. Let's be honest. He's the one that adds to you. God, he wants to put it in the hands of somebody that's going to do the right things with it. So a lot of people miss that. John says saving is a curse word. Saving is a curse word. Mr. Ken T1, he says, give him to Australia. Love Miles Monroe, right? Ken, is it coming from Australia? Miss Chantel says, very true. If you're lacking in one area, you might be lacking in another. Managing everything and finding the balance is key, right? Some people feeling you on what you're saying, because it's that mismanagement that we tend to not really pay attention to, because a lot of guys that's gotten into this area, the 40s and 50s, they've made a lot of financial mistakes. Right. They made so what are some most common mistakes that you've seen guys make?
So in my particular age group, but just because it's in my age group, sometimes you can look at people's decisions and you can see the foresight of what their decisions or the fruit is going to produce or the lack thereof. So a lot of issues now, especially in the millennial generation, and as we're going and we're trying to raise and we're trying to give back to the youth, a lot of it is going to be social norms. When you look at Instagram, you look on Instagram, and I want everyone to understand that Instagram is a highlight reel. People are only going to put their best on Instagram. But you see people traveling, you see people getting new cars, you see people getting new houses, not knowing that trip that they just financed, put it on the credit card, and it's going to take them 17 months to pay that off. If they don't even pay on that credit card anymore. So I think social norms, I think these scripts that we tell ourselves, YOLO, you only live once. My favorite one is I deserve.
I deserve. Wow.
I deserve. That is a horrible script to tell yourself. So just these social and these cultural norms, I think you see people doing all of these things, and now people have so much access to credit. They're not understanding that these interest rates, they're not understanding that these credit card payments, that's 22% interest. That's going to hold you back, and that's keeping you from building wealth and building long-term wealth. So we can do what my father talked to me about, what we mentioned earlier, is that legacy, being able to pass on to our children's children.
Wow. Mr. Ken says, I can write a book on mistakes, right? There'll be a lot of books out there on that one, Ken, trust me. Chantel says, let me put my card up. Reading this book right now, I don't know if you have heard about Dr. Myron Golden. He has his book From the Trash Man to the Cash Man, and he brought out a point of compound interest. And he said, if you're not making it work for you, somebody is making it work against you. And you mentioned the credit cards, and they're making that whole thing work against us. So us understanding just things like compound interest, something like that, and how it works, and you can make it work for you or make it work against you. But that's some of the education that we lack. Now, what's your opinion on why they don't teach this stuff in schools? How do you feel about that? They don't teach this stuff in school. Why do you think that's so?
Well, let me say this. The fact that they don't teach it in schools gives me an opportunity to go and to give back to the younger generation.
Like that.
So I'm looking at this as an opportunity for me to get some brothers together, for me to go out, network with different school administrators, with with the city to go out and to teach these courses and teach these classes in school.
Yeah.
Why they don't teach us? Not to get too deep, but I don't believe that the system is designed for us to think for ourselves. The system is designed for us to be good workers, but it's not designed for us to really use our innovative skills, for us to use our creativity. It becomes a one shoe fits all. And then as we get older, we fall into this trap. And nothing against the job. I work. I love what it is that I do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm a hustler.
Just in case they're watching, huh?
Just in case. And I love what I do. And I absolutely love what I do. And the job allows me to, with the wise decisions, it allows me to invest in other opportunities so I can begin to create wealth for myself on the side. So I don't have anything against a job, but I do believe that the system is not designed for you to think for yourself.
Yeah. And I think people who rely on the system and thinking the system is going to help them, I think they do themselves a disservice. So just having that awareness that the system is not there to really benefit you, then it tells you that I need to do something different. Ms. Linda says also leveraging and compounding is another arena that is not taught.
Absolutely.
Right. Chantel says systematic programming. Right. Dr. Selena says knowledge is power. They don't want us to have that power. They don't want us to have that power. Miss Kelly says, I sometimes think you have to blow money in order to learn how to save and invest money properly. Thoughts? What do you think about what Miss Kelly said right there?
I like to learn from other people's mistakes. That's just me personally. So if she wants to blow money, I want to learn from her so I can get that wisdom so I don't make those same mistakes.
Right.
I mean, let's be real here. Life, everyone has made mistakes, including as much as now my finances are being automated. You never stop learning. And even when you think you're doing and making the right decisions, with the more education and more learning, you realize like, wow, I did not do this correctly, or I could have done this a little bit differently. One of the biggest mistakes that I see is just when we're going out and we're purchasing things and knowing if we can truly afford what it is that we're going out to purchase. And I actually have some, if you wouldn't mind, I actually have some notes that I wanted to, and I hope that this will bless someone today.
Go ahead.
But when it comes to afford, how do you know, and I want to ask people, and I'm just curious on some of the responses, but how do you know that you can afford something? If you guys could comment in the chat, participate, put it in. How do you know that you can afford what it is that you're purchasing?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Everybody chime in. Kinfolk, where you at? Let him know. How do you know you can't afford something? Right.
Yeah. So not to belabor the hour. So please continue to comment. But my definition of afford is if the cost of the item can be comfortably covered by your disposable income without compromising your financial goals, then you can afford it. So I'm going to say that one more time.
Yes.
If the cost of the item can be comfortably covered by your disposable income without compromising your financial goals, then you can afford it. And there was a few key words that I wanted to touch in that definition.
Yeah.
And one of those words is disposable income.
Yeah.
Disposable income. A lot of times, and I hate to bust people's bubbles, but your credit card and your credit card limit is not your disposable income.
Wow.
That's not your disposable income. What disposable income is the amount of money you have left after all of your essential expenses and savings have been deducted from your income.
Wow.
So what does that mean? You don't have disposable income until your priorities are taken care of first.
Now you just said something right there. Let me get Mikhail. Mikhail says if it fits in your budget, right? Chantel says if you can afford it 3 times after paying your bills. Wow, 3 times after paying your bills. Kelly says if I got it in cash and know it's not going to take from my life, right? John says we would never buy anything if we are waiting before we can afford it. He brings up an interesting point, right? Kelly says disposable equals cash. So her definition is cash. That's how she defines disposable. It equals cash, right? But I'm glad you pointed that out because I think people may be, we can't assume that people know certain things. Yeah. So I'm glad that you broke down what disposable was. Was there any other words in there that stood out to you wanted to kind of
So compromising your financial goals. That definition doesn't mean anything if you don't have financial goals. Wow. We talked about goal setting, we talked about mindset, and then I know we're coming up on, we got about 20 minutes left. Maybe we can dive into a little bit more some financial tools that are available. But if you don't have financial goals, then that definition doesn't matter. So there is a system and there is a process to everything. And I think in terms of priorities, we prioritize what feels good to us. We prioritize our wants and our desires versus prioritizing our responsibilities.
Wow. No, that's huge. So like you said, we want to give the people some practical things. Now you already mentioned SMART goals.
Yes.
You already mentioned SMART goals. What is another thing that would be real pivotal in helping somebody begin to turn that financial situation around?
Okay, I'm going to hit it in 3 parts.
Okay.
So after you have your goals, after you've made the decision, you know what, I want to get my finances in order. After you've looked and you've evaluated your financial state, the next thing to do is focus on building an emergency fund. That emergency fund and the importance of an emergency fund, it's not a matter of if there's going to be an emergency, it's a matter of when there's going to be an emergency.
Wow.
So building that emergency fund, you want to be able to have 3 to 6 months worth of finances because you never know what will happen. If you end up losing your job, and I'll just give a vulnerable, quick story. I went through last year, some decisions where I needed to leave my job. Wow. And that confidence that I had to leave, the reason I was able to be so confident and to be able to have the options to choose where it is that I wanted to go next is because I knew that I had an emergency fund that if I were to be out of work for a certain period of time, that I would still be able to maintain that lifestyle. So again, that emergency fund, you want to have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. Again, if you don't know your financial state and you don't even know how much you're spending a month, you need to evaluate that first. But at least 3 to 6 months. Once you get to about that 3 month, put that in a high yield savings account. We've been conditioned, and nothing is wrong with the bank. I don't have anything. This is not an anti-bank conversation.
Right.
This is, I heard someone say earlier, leverage. This is how you're going to leverage and make your money how to make your money work for you. Use that money and put it in a high yield savings account. Right now, high yield savings accounts, they're averaging about 4 to 4.5% interest rate. So in a lot of in a lot of high yield savings accounts, and if you're interested in having one, I do have a referral link for one, so let me know.
Okay.
But you're actually able to set up buckets in that high yield savings account. So if you do have goals, so just to be a lot more stricter on your goals, you can actually break down in that high yield savings account your goals. So say if you want to take a trip to Cabo in the next 6 months, if you're saving $500 a month, you can allocate $200 to that trip to Cabo. So now you're saving long term and you're also building your savings account and your money is growing interest.
Nice.
And the next thing that I wanted to mention, so I mentioned the importance of an emergency fund. Also, I wanted to mention that 401k. There's a bunch of different retirement accounts, but everybody on this call, if your job offers a 401k with the match, that is free money. I don't care what people says or how they feel in long-term strategy. I like free money. If somebody is giving me free money, I'm going to take it.
Right.
At least contribute up to the max. I talked about saving yourself from yourself earlier. The 401k will deduct it from your account automatically. And what I love, some people say, well, I don't want to get a 401k because I might need that money and I might need to get it and I'll get a 15% penalty. Right. Good. Do not touch it. I'm so happy that they even put the penalty there, because that is not money that you want to go and have access to. That is for your long-term savings, and that is for your future. Right. And then another thing that I wanted to talk about is just debt. Debt is not, there's a difference between good debt and there's a difference between bad debt. Good debt makes you money. Bad debt costs you money. Wow. If you're dealing with debt over 6% interest, because, we have student loans, we have house payments, a lot of us have credit cards that we leverage for credit card points, this and that. But if you have high interest debt, which is above 6%, pay that off, because over that will just keep you stuck. An expense that may be that you should be able to pay off in 2-3 months, that interest will keep you stuck 12, 13, 14 months down the line. So if you have high interest debt, pay that off, contribute that money to the HSA, and take advantage of at least the match. And we can talk a little bit more about different financial strategies, but at least up to the max.
Nice. Let me get a couple of comments. We got a lot of people chiming in. We want to get them. Mikhail says, have more than 2 bank accounts and at least 2 savings accounts. You can funnel money to each account and don't touch them unless one is set up for bills only. Right? Kelly says, preach, cuz life be doing the most and them emergencies are going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's when. Right? Miss Linda says, true, emergency fund. So people feeling you on the emergency fund. Mr. Troy Kraft, he says, credit cards are truly meant to be used strategically and for well-disciplined people, but they advertise it mostly to the crowds that aren't or lack the knowledge of it. Right? They're trying to get people trapped into that, making that compound interest work against you. But this has been good, man. This is great stuff. This is great information. And I really hope people are really locking in that emergency fund. One thing about that emergency fund, it keeps emotions in check. Because a lot of times people make emotional decisions financially, and boy, talk about can get you in some trouble because fear creeps in, right? You got that emergency fund, kind of keeps their fear down, right? Ms. Linda says, yes, I bank at DeFi, crypto / Bitcoin, etc. Okay. All right. So some people got some techniques, some different things they're using, places they're putting money. So I'm glad to see people are taking their financial futures serious, right? But speaking to those who may come across this podcast who they don't necessarily, they hadn't gotten there yet, or they just beginning to wake up to it. Right. That encouragement is huge. Yeah. In that situation, because you got, especially if you got a family, you start to worry about, what about my kids? Absolutely. What kind of situation I'm gonna leave my wife with or my spouse with, period. And these are real situations, because one thing I see, because you talked about the legacy portion, you talked about that earlier. How many of us have had to deal with life as it comes because somebody didn't plan for our future? I think about that. How many people have had inheritances left to them? If that's been your situation, let us know. If not, how do we stop that from continuing? How do we say the buck stops here? I'm gonna make sure that my children's children have a better footing in life to start with. Right. So just taking it there, when you talk about you're balancing your short-term financial goals like paying off debt and you're saving for emergencies. If somebody's starting late, how do they begin to balance that? How do they balance the short term with the long term? How would they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, you have to educate. There's a few things that you can do. You have to, number one, educate yourself, especially as men. And I know we have a lot of women on the call as well.
Oh, absolutely.
But,
Yeah.
but a lot of time, ego and pride gets in the way of being educated.
Right.
Ego and pride will get in the way of us just going to someone asking those vital questions. A lot of times, a lot of times we suffer in silence. I think that we have to begin to get around community. If you need to talk to a financial advisor, that's fine. But I think being in the community, educating yourself, following now in this information age, honestly, it's very easy. You can follow pages like mine. So thank everyone for joining the podcast. I'm going to be putting out more content as time goes on. But with the algorithm, the more and more you get into finances with the algorithm, more financial tips and tools will begin to pop up. I believe that your finances, if you look at who your 5 friends are around you, look at the circle that you're hanging around, some of those peer pressures. If you're still out in the club buying bottles, but you know that your finance, but it's a real thing.
You're right.
I see it all the time. But if you know that you're not in the financial position that you need to be in, I'm not saying cut those friends off, but it's time to start gravitating more to the friends that you know are taking their financial future a lot more serious.
Yeah.
In the book, The Millionaire Next Door, and one of the things that a lot of millionaires or a lot of people with money, they don't look like they have money. So I think just realizing that trying to impress someone who does not care, once we get out of that mindset as a community, I believe that our finances will just go to an entirely different level. But in terms of motivation, educating yourself, reading books, listening to podcasts, I can drop a few here, listening to audio books. I think that's a great way. And then I think all of you guys, thank you, because you guys have taken the first step with even joining this podcast and taking time out of your day. But these are the conversations to really grow what it is that we're trying to do as a community.
Mr. Troy Kraft, he says, get money automatically deducted from your employer to go to a savings account at another bank, so you will be less tempted to dip into it, even if it's $60 a paycheck. Out of sight, out of mind. So a lot of people don't know you can set up where your money goes, your paycheck, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of them give you those elections where you can go and you can have a certain percentage of money or a certain amount of money sent to this financial institution, to that financial institution. And so what comes to you in your paycheck is what's left over, right? So I don't know if a lot of people understand that you can even just simply do that to start directing your money. So you don't have to, once it hits your hand, now you start distributing it, because once it hits your hand, a different thing takes over and you start, second guessing things like, well, maybe I don't, so avoid the temptation like Mr. Troy Kraft said, right? Please avoid the temptation, because that temptation can get you in trouble.
Absolutely.
Right. So any particular tools, any apps? You mentioned some things where you can educate yourself, but are there any financial apps or tools or anything that may be helpful to some people?
So I'm so happy that you asked this. So earlier I talked about maximizing your margins and understanding your finances. We're living in 2024. We're in a new age. We're in the information age. We're in the technology age. Don't get me wrong. I have a budget, but I have not met anyone who still uses a physical budget. If they do, more power to them. And if they can follow it, awesome. But one of my favorite financial tools to use is Rocket Money. I hope they hear this so they can sponsor me, so I can start
work it out,
money.
man. Work it out.
Yeah, Rocket Money in this because I'm promoting them. But there are multiple budgeting apps. But I love Rocket Money because a quote that Dave Ramsey says is, "If you don't tell your money where to go, it'll tell you where it went." So a budgeting app like Rocket Money, it'll show you your subscriptions, because now that's how people are getting money. That's how these companies are getting money, is these monthly subscriptions. And you look and you think, oh, it's only $3 here, $7 here, $14 here. Next thing you know, you're paying $200 in subscriptions by themselves. So it shows you that. Also, what I love about Rocket Money is it'll actually break down the percentage of where your money is going. So it was an eye opener for me when I downloaded Rocket Money and I saw that 22% was going to food, and going out to eat.
Right.
So when you look at that, so understanding, I think there's tools that'll allow you or that'll help you understand your financial picture a lot better. Also, majority of people have an iPhone. I know my dad still has an Android and Troy has an Android. I hope this y'all can. I'm just but there's apps such as like the numbers apps where you can create a net worth profile, or you can actually create more budget sheets on there as well. So there's multiple tools. Every Dollar I know is a great financial budgeting app as well. And there's a few more, but just to keep it simple, my favorite that I'm using right now is Rocket Money, and it has been an absolute game changer.
Yeah. No, Rocket Money, I like it gives you alerts too.
And it'll give you alerts.
Yeah, certain things are coming up. Hey, you got this bill coming up this week. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
And let me give a little even secret if you want to take it.
Okay. All right.
Personally, I believe in spend some, save some, give some. I'm also a giver. So as a giver, when I do give money, before I would just send money here and there, but I actually am able to create categories in my budgeting app, and I have a category for giving that at the end of the year for my taxes that I do include in my taxes. So that's good. That's good. I like the way you think, man. I like the way you think. But no, it can seem overwhelming in the beginning. And people have to learn to be patient with themselves. And I know people may feel like I've waited, so my patience level isn't where it needs to be. But the intensity in which you approach this new financial strategy, the intensity, how intense would you suggest that people be in this? Absolutely. So again, it's all about your mindset, and it's all about what it is that you want. Everybody doesn't have the same goals or the same desires. But I know for me, in terms of my approach and what it is that I want, we talked about it earlier. A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So for me, my level of intensity is not just about me. It's not just about my future kids. It's about my future kids' kids. Right. So for me and what it is that I want to accomplish, I'm approaching it with focus, with intensity. Some of the things that I'm doing every single day, I'm listening to some type of financial podcast, reading a page on a book. There's usually not a day that goes by that finances is not a part of my life. But when I say that, though, I enjoy what I do. Some people can look and be like, oh, you crazy. I don't care about finances that much. And that's fine. But I actually enjoy learning, and I'm enjoying what it is that I'm doing. And I'm enjoying helping people. I believe that God has given me a gift to really help people and to help free some of his people. And the word says the people will perish because of a lack of knowledge. So I just believe that God has given me knowledge, and he's given me the understanding. And I want to listen to what he's telling me to do and to be able to pass that knowledge along. So I'm not just being intense for me, but I'm also being intense for that young man when we talked about the school who has no direction. I'm being intense for the people that God has aligned for me.
That's good. That's good. you know, I think about just the scores of people who just lack this. So
Mhm.
I appreciate just the work that you're doing now,
Yeah.
and how you start to, just really give back in this particular area. And I think it's something people do a great disservice. And I'm gonna talk about my church people real quick. Talk about my church people. How we look at money. Listen, the Bible says the
Mhm.
love
Of
of
money is
money
the root of
is
all
the root. It didn't say money is the root of all. I heard
evil.
people misquote that so much. And
Mhm.
so we treat money like this thing when it's a tool, right?
Mhm.
And so we have this funny relationship with money, especially in church. We have this real funny relationship with money, but it's one of those things that it's a tool that we have to learn how to use. Right.
Absolutely.
Right. So we got to dispel all of the myths and all of this type of stuff that keeps us in this funny place with money, especially my church people, right? Especially my church people, because listen, wealth is not evil. Wealth is not evil. Right? I tell people the first thing God did was made Abraham wealthy. That's the first thing he did was make him wealthy because he didn't want him to have to depend on the systems that he was around, right?
Absolutely.
God is trying to get us independent of all this craziness and this foolishness. And one of the things that he does to uses to do that is teach us how to build wealth and give us the power to get it, right?
Mhm.
He empowers us to get it. So listen, man, you dropped some great stuff on the people, and I know you wanted to do a giveaway. You
Yeah.
you want to do that after the final thoughts, or you want to go ahead and do that now?
So I'm actually going to have Selena, if you could tell me, could you point out two people who have started this podcast? Well, first, if you got value, if you received some value, if you felt like you take some nuggets,
Yeah.
if you could just comment in the chat, if you could just put in the chat, I'm ready. I'm
Yes.
ready. I'm
Yes.
ready to make a difference. I'm ready to make a change with my finances. I'm ready to learn more. I'm ready to educate. I'm ready to educate myself more. If
Right.
you've made that commitment and something you've heard challenged you or motivated you to want to make a change, put that in the chat. And I'm going to have Selena name two people that have been on the chat, that's been active in the chat. And what I'm going to do, two books that have changed my life. I'm going to get the address. If you could DM me, or once Selena gives the name, if you could DM me so I can get your address. Two books that I want to give away.
Okay, we got the giveaway.
Yes,
Come
I'm
on
going
now.
to send it to Amazon. The first one, and if you don't win this giveaway, highly 10 out of 10 recommend. I will teach you how to be rich by
Mhm.
Ramit Sethi. This book is a very, very practical book on how to break down your finances. He really takes a deep dive in understanding your financial tools, like understanding the 401k, IRA, your health savings account. I really want to touch on that, but maybe this is set up for a part two.
Oh yeah.
Because for my
We'll work it
older
out.
generation, I really want
Work
to
it
touch
out.
on that savings account. And then the second book, if there's someone that is struggling with habits and saying, okay, I really want to be able to change my mindset, but I'm having some difficulties. I want to give away this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. He
Great book.
really breaks down how to create good and bad habits and how small things turn into big results, whether positive or negatively. So I just want to say thank you to those individuals. And once we pick those two people out, I will be sending out one or two of those books to that individual or to those two individuals.
Those two individuals. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and do our final thoughts, and then we'll
Yeah.
lock those two people in.
Yeah.
So what you want to leave the people with?
Yeah. So I saw on TV the other day, we talk about inflation, and obviously inflation is a scary word. And I'm not saying this to scare you guys, but since 2020, auto insurance has went up 55%. Electricity has gone up 27%. Rent has gone up 22%. Groceries have gone up 21%. Overall, with inflation since COVID, since 2020, inflation has rose up to 19%. So understand that the strategies that worked before are not the strategies that is going to work here in the future. It's going to require a level of intensity. It's going to require a level of focus. It's going to require getting around individuals, reading, listening to podcasts to really change your financial future. And I'm telling you, and I know Troy put it in the podcast a little bit earlier, the hardest part is just getting started. $50, just $50. If you can start putting your payments on automatic, whether it's a savings account, an IRA, a 401k, $50 and just making that decision and getting that started and getting the ball rolling, the better you get, the more you'll be able to increase your contributions. I just want to encourage you guys today, just get started. So that's my word of encouragement. Let's just get started and let's continue to educate ourselves and let's continue to be better and let's continue to grow together.
First of all, I want to thank Mr. Lawrence for stopping by and dropping all of this value on our people. And let me say, just addressing the emotional part of getting started. Listen, everything, whenever you start it, it always seems tough at the beginning, right? So if it doesn't seem like things are moving, be patient. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with the process, and just keep working the tools. Just keep using the tools. Just keep working it. By the time you look up, you will realize that you have made so much progress and gained so much ground. And this will encourage you to keep moving, to keep going. But like Lauren said, what's the goal? The goal is to leave somebody in a better situation than somebody left you. Think about those who are coming behind you. Think about those who are coming after you. Let them be able to live their life without having to just work to survive. You want them to thrive, but it begins with the decisions that you make today. Don't rob your tomorrow. Worry about today. So let's get the plan in place. Let's work the plan and let's set our financial futures in the right direction and the right path so that we can leave an inheritance for our children's children. And that's my final thoughts. All right. So our two people are our
winners.
And see if my producer can put those names up. And let me say this, because I don't know, because my man is not here. He's the one who usually does it. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Yes. Subscribe, like, share, subscribe. I know I dropped the ball on that, man. So please forgive me. So who are our two people? It's coming. All right. Okay.
All right.
We got, Chantel and Linda. Chantel and Linda. Okay. So those are our two people who have get those books. Listen, even if you didn't win, go get the books. Go get the books. Atomic Habits, James Clear is a great book. Habits are just what drives a lot of this. So you want to begin to work on that. And the other one, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I've seen that on TikTok, and I've seen a lot of people speaking positively about that book. But the main thing, like you said earlier, educate yourself. Make sure you educate yourself. All right. Now you mentioned something else about a mentor. Next week, we have a mentor coming on, and he's going to talk about, he's very passionate about young people getting this. When I say young people, I'm not talking about people, teens and stuff. I'm talking about even if you're in your 40s and 50s, right? He's always looking to make sure he helps people get to a better place. So we're going to have him on next week, and don't miss it. Great brother. I can't stress it enough. Great brother. So you don't want to miss that. Right. But let me say this. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you for being here. My producer telling me something. Oh, where can we find you? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Where can we find you?
Oh, good people. Thank you. So on my social media, it is lawrencebrown.ii. I'm a second. I talked about my father. I'm a proud second. I rep that proudly. So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Lawrence Brown, as well as TikTok, lawrencebrown.ii. And
right.
YouTube channel is coming soon.
Right. It's coming. So y'all be ready.
Oh, absolutely.
Y'all be ready. All right. Shout out to Mr. Brown.
Yes.
We appreciate you having the foresight to teach your son. And now he's being a blessing to a whole lot of people. So great stuff. Great stuff. Listen, thank everybody that stopped by tonight. We appreciate you. Don't forget to subscribe. Subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe to Mr. Lawrence Brown, his TikTok, and be looking out for that YouTube channel that is coming soon. We appreciate y'all. We're going to catch y'all next week. Peace out.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you.